On this beautiful sunny afternoon, I started reflecting on stories about the inner earth, this time from Woolpit, a village in the English county of Suffolk, whose name is derived from an Old English word meaning pit for trapping wolves. The current population is about 2,000 people. During the 12th century, the population was less than half of that, and it's from that time period that today's episode takes place. Two medieval writers independently report that two children, a brother and a sister, mysteriously appeared one day in the small village. They wore strange-looking clothes, spoke in an unknown language, and seemed to live off of a diet entirely made up of raw beans. Their skin also had a greenish color, but besides that, they generally had a normal appearance. The people of the village took them in, gave them more nourishing food, and while their green skin color eventually faded, the boy died soon after being baptized. The girl learned to speak English and started to explain a rather strange and bizarre story about how they ended up in the village. She claimed that she and her brother had come from a place called St. Martin's Land, an underground world whose inhabitants are green. She claimed that they emerged from one of the wolf trapping pits from which the town is named, deep holes in the earth designed to lure and ensnare dangerous wolves. She explained that their subterranean home didn't have a sunrise or sunset, but instead it was always twilight with a diffused glow. She said that the siblings had followed their father's cattle's herd into a cave and had become lost and disoriented, and it was the distant sound of bells, probably of a church, that eventually led them out. But when they emerged from the cavern, they did so in Woolpit rather than St. Martin's Land. There are numerous versions of the story and even more theories attempting to explain the odd details, such as the green skin being the result of malnutrition, poisoning, or the lifelong exposure of their skin to a different kind of light besides the sun. In my book, Gods with Amnesia, I explain that there are numerous bioluminescent organisms, and especially fungus, that thrive in enclosed settings such as caves because of the lack of wind, which helps to distribute the spores of fungus in outside open-air environments. But in enclosed environments, attracts insects or other animals which perform the duty that the wind would normally do. Much in the same way that bright, vivid colors of flowers attract bees in a similar way, helping to distribute, in this case, the flower's pollen, aiding in fertilization. So one can imagine that the light of St. Martin's Land, if such a place were to exist, could be a diffused, perpetual glow of mushrooms, lichen, or something similar. The story continues with the girl eventually marrying a royal officer from a town about 40 miles from Woolpit, given the name Agnes, and having children whose descendants could possibly still inhabit the area to this day. While the vast majority dismiss the story as folklore and fairy tales, it still manages to persist, with some seeing striking similarities to legends of green leprechauns and other old myths from the region. Gerald of Wales, an archdeacon and historian from the 12th century, told a similar story of a boy who, after escaping his master, and I quote, encountered two pygmies who led him through an underground passage into a beautiful land with fields and rivers, but not lit by the full light of the sun, end quote. Could there really be inhabited subterranean worlds which actually exist, but the surface inhabitants today dismiss as myth and legend? The Nationalist Socialist government of Germany in the 30s and 40s took the concept of Agartha or inner earth very seriously, and unlike the United States and her allies, were the only major power at the time that correctly dismissed the fraudulent display of the supposed missing link in the British Museum called Piltdown Man, where a baboon's jaw was bleached and glued onto a human skull and touted as cutting-edge science for almost 50 years. While England and the United States celebrated this bogus evolutionary scam for the first half of the 20th century, Germany was not only exploring subterranean caverns in Tibet and Antarctica, but establishing and maintaining deep underground bases in them, much of which the US and Great Britain still keeps as classified information until this day, known only as Operation High Jump. My name is Robert Sepehr. I'm an anthropologist. You can find my published work on Amazon. Thank you for sharing, liking, subscribing. Please don't forget to leave me your thoughts in the comments section. Please have a great weekend, and I hope to see you again soon.